What's going on, everyone? So we are in the time in which you're going to see a lot of players getting waived and, bought out, or, guys just basically not making the main rosters, guys that are on guaranteed deals that end up getting bought out, guys that are on non-guaranteed deals, guys that are on training camp deals. This is kind of like another kind of just, buyout market type of wave. And the Lakers are going to have options. There's going to be several guys. Obviously, they can't bring anybody to the main roster without a trade. If they did an Andrew Wiggins trade or something like that, that could happen. But realistically, that's probably not going to happen with the Lakers moving into the start of the season. Lakers get a trade, it's probably closer to, December at the earliest, couple months. Even Rob Pelinka talked about how he wants to wait probably 20, 25 games before he goes and makes a move. But that doesn't mean you can't bring guys in on the G League team or a two-way deal, right? Like, you still have options. And you're going to have guys that are going to end up getting waived, that aren't going to get picked up, that, hey, you can bring them under your banner, bring them under your umbrella for potential, this season. If you do pull off a trade at some point, it's like, hey, we need another body. Boom. Remember this guy we signed? He's a guy that could come in, step in, play a role, or even as soon as next year, right? A player that you got to keep in mind, Lakers, they have a lot of top-end talent. The new CBA is very restrictive. You're going to need to find those cheap kind of diamonds in the rough. You're going to need to find those guys that can, play a role, not necessarily saying a star or a superstar or anything, just a guy that can come in, play a role for you, whatever that role is, depending on the player, whether it's a wing or a two-way guy or a guard or, a center, right? Like, come in, play a role for you, be a rotation piece ideally, even if it's a back-end guy that you're kind of developing on the main roster, whatever, right? You need guys to where you can spend more money on the top-end talent and then kind of fill out the rest of the roster. Got to think, Luka Doncic, yes, got a great contract on him right now, but he's going to be paid before you know it. Austin Reeves about to get 35 plus million, very likely. DeAndre Ayton, if he works out, is going to get, probably 25 to 30 million. Right? Like, you got a lot of guys that are all, going to get paid pretty soon. And so you're going to need to find those diamonds in the rough, those players that teams end up letting go that you can swoop in and bring in. Lakers also want to be one of the more premier kind of development teams, right? They want to be one of those teams that kind of create this cycle, bringing in young talent, developing them, moving them to the two-way, or some might leapfrog and get to the main roster while guys kind of phase out, whether it's via trade, free agency, they just price themselves out, whatever, right? Have that next wave of players that can come in and play that role. Well, one guy that was waived that's a bit of a surprise is Jared Butler. Now, that name might sound familiar to Laker fans, right? Why? Where did I hear Jared Butler from? Because he just torched the Lakers not that long ago. Literally, 2 preseason games ago, when the Phoenix Suns took on the Los Angeles Lakers, and Jared Butler ended up dropping 35 points in 34 minutes. He had 35 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds. Nearly a 35-point triple-double. He looked like Devin Booker out there. He was playing defense. He was hitting everything. The guy could not miss to save his life. And so, in a bit of a surprise, a bit of a shocker, he ends up getting waived. And, if you really evaluate the Phoenix Suns, it makes sense why he got waived. Now, they ended up keeping Jordan Goodwin. And you might be asking, man, Jared Butler's been killing it compared to Jordan Goodwin. Has had a good preseason too. He's been averaging 12.5 points. He's just better defensively. He's better at the dirty work, better at the hustle plays, better defensively. Jared Butler offensively has been fantastic. He's also only 25 years old. He won't be 26 till next August. So he literally just turned 25. So he's still young. Guy that has shown that, hey, he can be a bucket getter, right? Like, you even look at last season, his stats through 2024, 2025. He averaged 9 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists on 44.8% from the field. So basically 45% from the floor, right? This is a guy 6'3", 6'4" in size, basically slot into either guard position, initiate your offense, play the guard spot, but also play the 2 and just be a bucket getter for you. He's a guy that has shown a lot of talent particularly scoring the basketball. But you look at a team like Phoenix, you got Devin Booker, got Jalen Green. You have several guys that can fill in and play that role. Where does Jared Butler fit in on this roster with the 3-4 guys that you have that already do that? What do you need? You need those scrappers. You need those dirty work guys. You need the guys that can, the Jordan Goodwins that can defend multiple positions, understand the role, play their role, knock down the open three, defend at a high level, dive for loose basketballs, rebound the basketball, do all the dirty work. You need the dirty work players to complement your stars, to complement your high-end offensive players. Jared Butler, the guy that, he showed he can play some defense, but he's not really that. He's that bucket getter, right? He's a guy that I look at as, again, a sixth man type of guy coming off the bench, and it's like, hey, go get his buckets, right? He's a guy that I could see coming off the bench giving you 15 a night, right? In the right role, the right spot, the right minutes, the right opportunity. He's a guy that I think could have that level of impact for a team, right? Now, Lakers did bring in Nick Smith Jr., which is another guy that I think could have that type of level, just a bucket getter. He's also a couple years younger, right? Nick Smith Jr., a guy that can come in, slot in. He actually showed some ability to play some defense, right? He's not like elite defensively, but he was getting after it defensively, trying to make the team and all that stuff. But he's a guy that has shown he can run your offense, hit the open shot, right? Be that kind of Lou Williams type. That's what I keep talking about with Nick Smith Jr. I look at him as that Lou Williams type of player. Now, with Jared Butler, again, he's a guy that can come in, kind of give you a similar role, right? So the question is, do you need multiple of those guys? Could argue it doesn't hurt to have two, and then, if at some point you have to make a decision, you make a decision, right? Especially for a team that is the worst offensive, well, at least last year, the worst bench scoring team in all of basketball. So it's like, okay, wouldn't hurt to have multiple guys that go get you 15 to 20 on any given night, right? That would be fantastic. That would be great. Again, you look at what Jared Butler can do, provide a team. There's some sense to be made in that regard. Not going to be able to sign him to the main roster, but can you bring him to a G League team? If you can bring him on the G League team, then I think that he's a guy that, again, could get some reps there, whether you bring him on the main roster at some point this season after a trade, or next season, you just need young, cheap talent. He's a guy that's going to be on a vet minimum contract. You sign him probably a couple years on a vet minimum contract. He slots in, plays a role, be a bucket getter off the bench, be a rotation piece even, or even if he's just, break glass case of emergency type of guy. Guy at the end of the bench that's just dirt cheap that we need to fill in, and he's our 13th, 14th guy. Maybe you trade a Dalton Connect at some point, and it's like, hey, we can bring in a Jared Butler, a guy that could just give you buckets, right? Give you what Dalton Connect could give you, but you're not going to have to pay or worry about him leaving or whatever, right? So want to dive into Jared Butler and his stats here a little bit. Like I mentioned, 6'3", 6'4", 195 pounds, 200 pounds. You look at his stats past few seasons. Now, he is a guy that came in the league 2021, 2022, right? So he has the 4 years, so you wouldn't be able to sign him to a two-way. So that's why I mentioned G League signing, right? So you might think like, hey, waive Chris Minnan and bring in Jared Butler, or even if you're somebody like, get rid of Nick Smith and bring in Jared. Can't. Has to be, you'd have to bring him. He basically doesn't get an opportunity anywhere. Go sign him to the G League team. See if maybe, he can kind of work up the ranks, maybe move from the G League to the main roster. Again, if you pull off an Andrew Wiggins trade or something, it's like, hey, we need another guy. Boom, here's Jared Butler slotting in, playing in, plugging in, and he could be that other guy for you. But look at last season between the Washington Wizards and the Philadelphia 76ers. He actually was better in Philly as far as that way. So he played 60 games total, started in 17 of them. All 17 came from Philadelphia. He averaged 28, he played 28 games for Philly, 32 games for Washington, averaged 24.4 minutes per game in Philadelphia, 11.3 minutes per game in Washington, 9.9 field goal attempts in Philadelphia compared to 5.5 with Washington. Right, shot 42.6% with Philadelphia, shot 48.3% with Washington. But again, on half the sample size, where 3-point range. This is where, the kind of key is. Well, he shot 4.6 3-point attempts per game with Philadelphia, shot 35% from three-point range, which isn't great. Not terrible, but it isn't great. With Washington on 1.3 attempts, shot 36.6% from three-point range. He is a career 34% guy. He did have a season where he shot 50% with OKC on 2.3 attempts. But with Philadelphia on 4.6 attempts, that was by far his largest sample size. He averaged basically 2 more attempts than the closest to that. Something to kind of keep in mind. 2-point range on 5.3 attempts with Philadelphia, 49%. With Washington on 4.2 attempts, 52%. EFG of 51% with Philadelphia, 53% with Washington. Free throw shooting, 87% compared to 78% with Washington. Rebounding, 2.5 rebounds with 5 assists with Philadelphia, where he averaged 1.5 rebounds with 3 assists. Steals, 1 steal, half a block with Philadelphia, half a steal, half a block with Washington, 7 points with Washington, and almost 12 with Philadelphia. So he's a guy, again, I think could play a role, kind of fit some of the needs for the Lakers. But as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.